Is January 15th in 2026, which is the day that players that were signed in restricted free agency during the offseason are finally eligible to be traded, even on the deals that they are currently on. So here are the 11 players who met the criteria are now eligible to be traded as of Thursday. Santi Aldama for the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't think Aldama will be getting traded, but who knows what's going to be going on in Memphis. If they get a trade for Santi that includes maybe a first-round pick, which I would not hate a team throwing a first-round pick for a guy like Santi. He's 7'1", can shoot, can defend, can move his feet. He's kind of a stretch 4. Sometimes can play the 5, but I prefer to play him at the 4. I will say I haven't loved his fit alongside of Jaren Jackson Jr. They feel very similar in terms of what they want to do on the basketball court. So Santi Aldama, with all the rumors of what Memphis is doing with John Morant, probably getting traded. If you guys saw that clip of him and Vince Williams talking at practice, John Morant is probably going to be on a new team in the next couple of weeks. But John Morant, Santi Aldama is one of those names that might be included in a Grizzlies trade that was not able to play or be traded recently. Josh Giddey for the Bulls. Don't need to talk about him. Quentin Grimes for the Sixers. I think this is a very interesting case because Quentin Grimes went into this offseason. You guys remember he was a part of, not a part of, but traded right after the Luka Doncic trade. He was traded along with a second-round pick for one of the Martin brothers. And it's kind of interesting now because he's on a 1-year, I believe it's an $8 million qualifying offer deal right now. So if a team does trade for Quentin Grimes, they would basically be saying that they want him to be a part of their future and pay him. I don't see any team looking at Philly and saying that they would give up draft capital or really any positive assets for Q Grimes because the Sixers don't really have the money to bring him back on the contract he would probably want, hence why he returned this year on the qualifying offer. So I'd be surprised if Quentin Grimes gets traded. Isaiah Jackson for the Pacers, they need all the center play they can get, so they're probably not moving on from Jackson. This is the big one here that I need to talk about. As a Warriors fan, we've been waiting for this day to come. Jonathan Kuminga signed a 2-year, $48 million deal with a player option, I believe it was. If I go to his current contract right now, his current contract is yes, it is a team option for the second year of 2026-2027. He's making $24 million a year next season. He came out this morning and basically said, I'm demanding a trade from the Warriors. If you have looked at recent Warrior games, this should not come to any surprise. Even against Portland, which we won this game by 22, if you look at our team, every single player, guys, got minutes in this game because it was a blowout. He even brought in names like Pat Spencer, Buddy Hield, Trace Jackson Davis, who has not been getting any playing time. But one DMP coach's decision was Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know what they were trying to do with this trade, value. It kind of tanked it a little bit, maybe a little bit too much if you're the Warriors, because I remember a little bit ago we were talking about, Kuminga being part of a Larry Marketing trade, a possible Kevin Durant trade before KD turned that down. So Jonathan Kuminga is going to be on a new team. It really just depends on where. The rumor that I've been seeing a lot of is that there's a 3-team trade going on between the Brooklyn Nets, the Sacramento Kings, and the Warriors, where somehow Michael Porter Jr. ends up on the Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga ends up on the Kings, and a bunch of draft capital and young players end up in Brooklyn. I would not hate the Michael Porter Jr. trade. I think he brings the floor spacing we want, the shot creation from that bigger size, and the rebounding. I think that's such an underrated aspect of Michael Porter Jr.'s game is his rebounding that honestly Jonathan Kuminga has not really shown over the past couple of years. And I think that his fit next to a guy like Draymond Green would be helpful. The problem is I keep looking at this team and thinking center play. Where is that going to come from? Worried about the Warriors, but I'm very happy that Jonathan Kuminga is going to be out of the Warriors locker room, everything. He was a part of that. His rookie year, he was a part of the 2022 championship team. And then his relationship with Steve Kerr was just killed. I don't know exactly what it was, whether he couldn't fit next to Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, whether Steve Kerr wasn't really acclimating him the way that he wanted to be. It hasn't been good. It has not been pretty over the past couple of years for the relationship between Kuminga and the Warriors. So I'm very happy to see that hopefully he does get traded. It was reported that he came out and quote-unquote demanded a trade in the next couple of weeks. And finally, now he is eligible to be traded. The next big name that I do want to talk about on this list that I think could be traded, that would be kind of sad for that fan base's team, but to make the money work, and because they arguably have the Defensive Player of the Year this year already at this position that this guy plays, I'm looking at the name Naz Reid here for the Timberwolves. Naz Reid's been a staple for the Timberwolves for years now. I mean, you guys, if you follow basketball, know how much Naz Reid has meant to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. He's kind of been a part of all things Timberwolves. He's been with them since 2019-2020. He won Sixth Man of the Year. Obviously, a couple, maybe not, as soon as it was either last year or 2 years ago, he won that award. Backing up Rudy Gobert. This is the same team that traded 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert when they had Karl-Anthony Towns. Then traded Karl-Anthony Towns away, brought back Julius Randle. So that front court has kind of always been, he's never been able to be a true starter on a team. As a Warriors fan, by the way, I would want nothing more than Naz Reid to be a Warrior. I know that's basically impossible to happen. But the main reason I wanted to bring up Naz Reid's name is because I truly believe that if the Timberwolves are going to make their big splash of the trade deadline, if I look at where they're sitting on the standings right now, they're fourth in basically half a game behind the Spurs and only 1 game behind the Nuggets. So they're right there for a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. Minnesota just continues to play good basketball every year, and I think people forget that Anthony Edwards is still only 24 years old and still getting better every year. I know that technically he led the league in 3-point shots last year, but man, Julius Randle had a great start to this season, averaging 22 and 7 and 6. Jaden McDaniels has always been exactly what he is. He's a good defensive player. He's become a much more comfortable shot creator as of recently, but at the same time, definitely hasn't taken that crazy offensive jump you wanted him to. Rudy Gobert is your Defensive Player of the Year this year. I don't argue with the wall. Rudy Gobert's your Defensive Player of the Year. The main thing when you look at this team is you say, man, they're missing that guard, explosive shot creator, take the pressure off of Anthony Edwards' hands a little bit. And the rumor is that they'd be very interested in the name of the Memphis Grizzlies' John Morant. If they do a John Morant trade, not only would it probably have to be DiVincenzo thrown into the deal, but it probably would have to be Naz Reid to make the money work. I would expect that the Grizzlies would want a guy like Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon Jr. back in that trade, or even a Joan Behringer. Bones Highland has been playing a little too good, I would say, for the Timberwolves bench to just get rid of his minutes, especially with he's making Rob Dillingham very expendable in a trade. But I'm very interested to see if Naz Reid, who is now, as of today, eligible to be traded after signing, I believe it was a 5-year, $125 million deal in the offseason with the Timberwolves. Be very interested to see if he gets moved for one of those point guard names that I mentioned, like a John Morant. I don't think LaMelo's getting traded, but maybe a LaMelo. Trae Young was already the first domino that fell in that point guard rules and that point guard grouping. So I don't think that the Timberwolves are going to make that big of a splash, but if they decide to get on those John Morant sweepstakes, I think that they would be a good fit, because I think that Zach Edey and Naz Reid would fit very well together in the front court of Memphis, if Memphis also decides to move on from the name of Jaren Jackson Jr. The team I have to talk about that's been rumored with Jaren Jackson Jr. as of recently has been the Boston Celtics. Celtics would want no one better than a guy like him. He would play, it would kind of move Jaylen Brown to the 2, Jason Tatum to the 3, Jaren at the 4, and then some rebounding 5, whether it's like Nemez Keita or Luka Garza, or they bring in a new fresh name like a Walker Kessler next year when he comes back from injury, or a Zubac kind of trade, or even like a Nicholas Claxton in Brooklyn, I think could be a trade piece that a lot of teams are interested in. Even like a Jalen Smith off the bench for Chicago. But when I look at this Boston team, and I specifically look at Jaren Jackson Jr., I think that fit would be perfect. Not only can he stretch the floor, but he can take down the interior defensive free safety role, right? That Bam Adebayo defensive role, that kind of Porzingis ran for them when they went on their big championship run. And honestly, it's kind of a mix of Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford all put together in one player in Jaren Jackson Jr. So I would love to see the Celtics. I know that Brad Stevens has definitely been making his phone calls, definitely been making stuff happen. Would love to see a team like Boston call up Memphis and say, hey, we really, really want Jaren. What's it going to take if you guys move on from Ja and Jaren? Another team I have to talk about, that has won now 11 of their past 13 games. The Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi Leonard is averaging 33 points per game. over the past 12 games. He's averaging 28 on the season. Harden's averaging 25, 8 and 5. Zubac had a rough start to the year, but has come back down to earth, 15 and 10 with a full block. John Collins has been their starting power forward, averaging 13 and 5. A little bit unproductive, but when you have the scoring of Kawhi and Harden, I would love to see this team find a way to make a trade. I don't know if they're going to be able to, but I would really love to see this team find a way to make some trade to go to a buy now rule. I think that they are good enough to where they can not only sneak into the play-in, but possibly host a playoff game, a play-in game. I would be very surprised if the Clippers ended with a worse record this year than Portland or Memphis, especially with Memphis possibly going into a full rebuild. I don't see Dallas catching them now that Anthony Davis is going to get traded, and they might shut down Kyrie Irving for the rest of the year. I don't see Dallas making this big jump. I don't see Utah. Sacramento's only going down when they sell their guys, and the Pelicans possibly could sell too. So when I look at this Western Conference, I really view them, the Clippers, Phoenix, and Golden State in a very similar tier, honestly, at the moment. I would honestly, call me crazy, I would consider throwing Houston into that area too, just because they have not performed the way that you expected them to, and Amen Thompson really has not made that point guard jump that we expected him to. But at the same time, Amen Thompson isn't a point guard, so it's kind of interesting to see, I don't know, the dynamic over there. But I did want to mention these 11 players: Santi Aldama, Josh Giddey, Q Grimes, Isaiah Jackson, Jonathan Kuminga, Trey Mann for the Hornets. I know he wasn't getting a couple DMPs recently, so maybe he's a bench player for the Hornets. Sam Merrill is making good money for the Cavaliers, so if they decide to try and do an upgrade trade, don't be surprised if you start randomly out of nowhere seeing the names of Darius Garland and Jared Allen thrown into trade rumors, along with maybe a Sam Merrill or a DeAndre Hunter, who apparently wants to get traded too. I could see this Cavs team making a big splash for a solid player if they package a couple of those guys and maybe a draft pick in the future. I don't see Davion Mitchell getting traded. I don't see B-Ball Paul getting traded unless they make their splash play and he's just like a throw-in at the end of the trade. I don't see Ryan Rollins get traded. He was one of those diamonds in the rough found to play next to Giannis. I do think I see Giannis getting traded, though, so if the Bucks make a trade, maybe Ryan Rollins is not a part of the team, but I'd be shocked to see that. I will see, though, that there are a handful of players that are available. Dude, how are you? Good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. Well, that's so cool. Good to see you, man. Yes, there is a group of players that will be trade eligible on January 18th. That is Keaton Wallace and Russell Westbrook. So if the Kings decide to sell a name like Russell Westbrook, man, Houston loves Russell Westbrook. Pelicans, DeAndre Jordan, I guess, is eligible on January 23rd. Mikal Bridges is eligible on February 1st. Luka on the 2nd, Precious on the 4th, and De'Aaron Fox on the 4th. I really don't see any of those guys. Getting traded, but I mainly want to mention the names of Naz Reid for the Minnesota Timberwolves, who I think could definitely be a part of a move if the Timberwolves decide to upgrade their starting lineup. Who knows if that's going to be an actual move that puts them over the top, but might make Anthony Edwards feel a little bit more like this organization is really trying to push him to be a championship caliber player. But the main name is Jonathan Kuminga. Where is he going to get traded to? Is it going to be a lower-end team like Sacramento? Is it going to be the Brooklyn Nets? Or could I see a team like Dallas? You know, if the Anthony Davis trade is still on the board for the Golden State Warriors, is Dallas interested in Jonathan Kuminga? Do they view him similar to like how they viewed Zachary Risachet when it was rumored that the Atlanta Hawks, before they made their trade, were interested in Anthony Davis? Is a guy like Q Grimes, who's kind of been, you know, the sixth man for the Philadelphia 76ers, but kind of shoved into the bottom end of that because they're trying to get Jared McCain more involved as of recently, so he's been playing a little bit more minutes. Q Grimes has been playing a lot of minutes, no doubt about that, but averaging 14 points a game with the money that he's going to be expecting in the offseason, I'd be very surprised to see a team really go out and trade any assets for him unless it's very low value. But with VJ Edgecombe starting all year, Tyrese Maxey having a 31-point-per-game season, Kelly Oubre has not only started, I think he just came back recently from an injury. They've got a lot of those 2/3 shot creation guards that I think teams would be interested in at the right price. And if I'm the 76ers, I'm really looking and saying, you know, with the injury history of a Joel Embiid, with the injury history of a Paul George, with the injury history, not injury history, but with the history of who Andre Drummond is, go get yourself another big power forward, big center to come in just to make sure that when and if those guys go down with injuries, that you feel good about how the team is, even without those guys. Because I really don't view Quentin Grimes as a big difference maker on this team when we get to the playoffs. I think that he's been great, but I really think his role could be overtaken by a guy like Kelly Oubre, by a guy like Jared McCain. And if you can get that backup forward to put alongside those guys, maybe it comes in a Kelly Oubre trade, or maybe it comes in a Jared McCain trade. But I think Q Grimes would be the #1 name I would talk about being traded for the 76ers. A couple of good games that went on yesterday. I could talk about a couple of those here because I did get to tune into a couple. Funny enough, Philly-Cleveland was one of the games I watched. Donovan Mitchell continues to have one of the best seasons in Cleveland Cavaliers history. He is actually 4th. This season, he brings him to 4th all-time in points per game scoring. You could guess who the remaining guy is in 1 through 5. It's the same guy. But Donovan Mitchell averaging 29.7 points per game, 5.6 assists, 1.5 steals. He's been incredible this year. Darius Garland's been solid, but at the same time, you just see, when you're watching these two, you see the flaws out there. Lonzo Ball has been finally playing a little bit better. He's getting his field goal percentage up, but man, he has not been the acquisition that they wanted him to be this offseason. Jarrett Allen continues to play fine Jarrett Allen basketball, but 13 and 8. I keep looking at him and being like, man, I would just rather have Evan Mobley run my 5 and find a better power forward to put alongside them. DeAndre Hunter reportedly asking for a trade. I thought that was interesting. DeAndre Hunter reportedly asking to be traded out, which when they acquired DeAndre Hunter, it really felt like that was the beyond perfect fit on this team. It felt like they had their 2 guards. They needed that defensive-minded small forward. They had their 2 big men. And yes, DeAndre Hunter apparently is not having a good time in Cleveland or something, wants out of there. Cleveland's a team that I don't know what to think of them right now. 23 and 19. This was a team that was #1 in the Eastern Conference last year and has kind of fallen off a cliff this year. When you look through, they're on a win streak right now, but they kind of struggled for certain stretches of the season. Would really not be surprised if I saw a name like Darius Garland be thrown into trade rumors, possibly for a Sacramento Kings if I don't know, if a DeMar DeRozan and someone package is available, maybe something like that intrigues him. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the package that would make the money work, but Cleveland is a team that we definitely have to talk about needing to be available in the trade deadline range. I did see that Ja Morant is likely going to be traded to Miami Heat. If he does get traded, I wonder if that trade will include none other than Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero has been in and out of this rotation due to injuries. He's probable for the game today, but if you go through his game log, he's been very inconsistent. Right, he missed a huge stretch in December. He missed a huge stretch in the beginning of the season. He's been a little banged up ever since he came back. So we'll see if Tyler Hero is involved in that trade. I will say, I know that Norman Powell is having this incredible season, 24 points a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. His efficiency's been great. He's having probably the best season of his entire career. I would say shooting 42% from 3, 48% from the field. This will be the 3rd year in a row now. Almost since every year since, almost every year since 2020 shot above 40% from 3. That is crazy impressive. But I will say, Norman Powell is 32 years old, right? I'd much rather keep Tyler Hero and trade Norman Powell if you're doing a Ja Morant trade than trade Tyler Hero to get Ja Morant, which I feel like could just be a very balanced trade in terms of the ceiling-raising ability of a guy like Tyler Hero to Ja Morant. I really don't see the ceiling of this Heat team getting much higher, especially with how much time Ja Morant tends to miss due to injury. But who knows? He just bought a house in Miami under his trust a couple weeks ago, so maybe that's a sign that Ja Morant wants to be in Miami. And yeah, shout out to the Indiana Pacers for winning a couple games in a row. They unfortunately lost last night, but they were. Shout out to the Clippers. They're on a 4-game win streak. Funny enough, the Sacramento Kings, ever since Dennis Schroeder gets suspended, go on a 3-game win streak. Who would have thought you play the guys that want to play for the basketball for you and you start winning games? But man, I want to see Zach LaVine on a new team. I want to see DeRozan on a new team. I want to see Sabonis on a new team. I want to see Westbrook on a new team. I want to see Schroeder on a new team. I want to see Monk on a new team. I want to see the Sacramento Kings team have a completely new roster next year. They got to really go into a whole new rebuilding phase because what they're doing right now is the worst form of basketball you could have, in my opinion, is when not only are you bad, but you have no great future assets, and all your assets are not good enough to get real good draft capital for. But that's kind of my trade rumors right now. Interested to see if a guy like Trey Murphy gets traded. Interested if Utah makes any moves. Dallas, obviously, is the Anthony Davis rumors. Are they going to come true? In the Eastern Conference, I wonder if the Hornets would look at any possible centers that are on the market and say maybe the centers could get us up to the Chicago Bulls. But Chicago, shout out Vucevic in that game winner last night, ruining. Someone had a really big game against the Chicago Bulls last night. If I go back and Bryce Sensabaugh, former second-round pick for the Utah Jazz, dropped 43 points last night on the Utah Jazz, but it was ruined by a Nikola Vucevic layup to win the game. Shout out Vucevic, 35 points. He's in every single trade rumor over the past couple of years, and imagine how many teams are looking at, 35, 7, and 5 in a win last night for Chicago and thinking, man, he's only making like $19 million. He would be the perfect starting center. But very excited about this January 15th deadline, hoping Jonathan Kuminga gets traded very, very soon.